Today, I'm talking about journaling for clarity. As many of you know, I'm doing a lot of coaching these days, particularly this year with several different programs. And one of the programs that I'm working with women on is starting new beginnings, reinvention, restart, new chapters in their lives. And it seems so many women that I'm talking to in and around my life are doing this now. So I wanted to just share with you that if you are in this process of transformation or going through an arc of transformation, journaling is a great tool for clarity. And its function is to have a place to put all of your thoughts, your dreams, your fears, your desires, what you're thinking about, to sort of get that head clear. Instead of it being all bogged down with all of that, in addition to your to-do list and everything you've got going on at work and everybody else that you're trying to support and what their concerns are. And it's very helpful to have a place to put it. And journaling works beautifully for that purpose, to have a place to go, to spend time on yourself, to allow yourself to do the brain dump into the journal, and to leave it there. And you'll find it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like cleaning out and decluttering a room. You clean out and you declutter your brain that day. And I've been practicing journaling for a while, mostly as an adult. I do it in a variety of different ways, which is one of the things I wanted to share with you today. And I have different journals for different things. Sometimes I have 5 or 6 journals going on at one time. So here's one of my favorites. Let me show you one of my favorite ways to journal, because I have different journals for different things. And this was a journal in 2015 that I created doing what's called art journaling. It's quite different than just writing on paper, although that's very valuable. But this was my first approach at doing it this way. And in my previous life, as many of you know, I'm an art historian, and I was a curator and a fine art appraiser, and I was a private art dealer. So, my whole world was art. So this is an art journal. You can see the pages here that I had created. This is from 2015. And I did this specifically while I was traveling. And I just got that real simple calendar, and I would draw in it. I would, instead of writing my feelings or what was going on, I would draw what was going on in my world. And then sometimes I would write a word there, right? So I would say that, like this one, write my word for the day was no worries, no worries. So I kept it real creative with lots of color, and then I added a little bit of words. And then I would paste things in here from places that I've been. So this was a day that I was in Paris, and Chez Janou is my favorite restaurant in Paris. It's a Provençal restaurant. And so I just grabbed that and pasted it on another piece of paper. This was some of the activities that I did when I was there. And it provides a great memory bank and a place for me to put things and empty my mind. So here I was in Prague, in Czech Republic, and sometimes I would add drawings. And this drawing was about all the things that I feel are treasures in my life, things that I have gratitude for. But instead of writing about what that was, I created symbols. So this is a very interesting way to have clarity and record. You could add pages. You see? So this is called art journaling, and it's a great way to journal. I love doing it, and I actually miss it because I got really busy in the last year, and I haven't created an art journal. I didn't do one for 2018. 2018 was a very strange year for me. I had very little time to myself. Here's one when I was in Hawaii. I lived in Hawaii, Big Island, for 20 years. And I would, record what was happening there, what I was thinking, what I was feeling. And sometimes I would do it with colored pencil because I'm traveling, right? So I take my little kit with me. I'm traveling, I've got pens, I've got stickers, I have that double sticky tape that you can buy and just run over the paper and then stick something to it. So it ended up also being with collage, you know, and here was another page that I did. And so if you're a person who likes to journal, but maybe you're looking for a new way to journal, something that opens up your creativity, this is a good method. This is another choice that's quite different. And it takes a little bit more time. As I said, this is the one when that I use, the kind of thing that I do when I'm traveling, because I like recording who I met, what I see, where I am, how I'm feeling, how it's changing me, what I want to remember, what I'm inspired by, what I tasted that I loved, if I want to come back, if I don't want to come back. All of those things are here, and it's done visually. Like here you can see, here's one where I need to lose 10 pounds, right? So I tell myself, walk, don't measure myself, and get some more sleep. And so I'm doing visual prompts as I'm going along. So that's art journaling. That was my 2015. I did it for the whole year. That year I was on the road most of the year. And it was a great companion, and it felt like this was a part of me too. It represents me, and it's a place also that I could go. It ends up becoming conversation with my higher self. So it allows me to get clear about what was important to me. Now here's another one. This is where I had written things down on this one. Actually, let me go to this one. I think this one would be more useful for you. This was in 2013, and in 2013, and you can journal lots of ways, right? So this is ink on paper. It's in this beautiful book, blank book. I think these are made in Italy. And what I was doing in this book for 1 year solid was Julia Cameron's The Morning Pages. I do a bit of a swing on it, where I also use it as a way to brain dump, and then I use it right after my brain dump to tap into my spirit guides or my intuition and see what guidance they have for me that day. And then it's a place for me to keep track of that guidance and what happened, what actions I took on it, what was the result, what were the signs and symbols that came through that I can depend on for meaning, to be able to develop my connection with my spirit guides, or be able to further develop my intuitive abilities. So in this one, July of 2013, I was in Switzerland that summer, and I was using this journal to do a brain dump, which I did. And then I asked, what guidance do you have for me? And this was a year that I was in big change, big transition. In 2013, I was going from, I was in the healing arts as I am now, but I wanted to change things up and have a more global presence. And this is when the internet and the ability for us to connect more easily came about, right? With the development of devices and apps and the ease of things, you know, especially networking, even across countries. Remember, I'm global, right? So I was hopping around, you know, living in a variety of different places. And I was always in person. I had an in-person practice. The only way that you would see me is if you signed up for a workshop, you went to a retreat, you took a class from me, you met me one-on-one wherever I happened to be. Usually I was in Hawaii, California, and Europe. And then people were saying, you know, it would be great if we could if you could stream or you could get online and have an online class. Well, now, of course, we can do lives, whereas back then you couldn't do lives. You could just record them and post them. And I was just at that point where I was thinking, because it's a big change to go from a private practice to online, big change. different equipment, got to spend a lot of money on setting it up, blah, blah, blah. So I remember I was thinking about that, and I did the brain dump in my journal here. I was at the lake, and then I draw a line across the page, and then I just say out loud, what guidance do you have for me today? And in this case, back in 2013, my guide said, all is well. Spirit guided you and opened all the doors and cleared the way so you could feel the love from a stranger on a stage, and this stranger was Santana. I went to a Santana concert in Locarno in Switzerland, which is in the Italian part, and it was a spiritual awakening. He's amazing. You watched and felt him carry the whole space in Locarno with his vibration and his energy. If you hold your own energy, if you hold your own space, and you're aware of your vibration, rejecting or tolerating those who would love to bring you down, by staying high and free and living in love, not only will you not be affected by negativity, but you'll change its course, at least, and may inspire its transformation to the higher realms. Now, I don't even speak like this. Okay? So this is what my guide sounds like. And long ago, I've stopped trying to figure it out, and I just write it down. All right, so lead by example, follow Spirit's lead, that you can travel and be solo. I often travel by myself. That you can travel and be solo, and happily so, is evidence of your personal security, your high self-esteem, and your confidence. And remember, the light is always with you, always. You see, so in this case, this is an example where I'm journaling for clarity and I'm doing a brain dump in a book. And of course, I have something else on my mind. And then when I go into what guidance do you have for me today, my guides picked up exactly on what it was that I was considering, and they knew what I needed to pay attention to. Now, that wasn't a business plan from my guides, right? That was personal development advice from my guides. And where am I now? Now I'm talking to you all right here. So it worked. You know, for me, it was the green light to go ahead and to make that switch in my life and to go through the arc of transformation myself, which I've done many times, which is why now I have a coaching program about that. So there's other ways that you can do this. You can also do journaling by using an app and recording your voice. I like to do it sometimes by video, because then I get to see how I feel, because sometimes we're just faking it, we're just saying things to make us feel better, to make others feel better. But in this case, make ourselves feel better. Oh, it's okay. It's not that bad, or maybe it really is bad that day. And it's just best to get it out and have it live somewhere. And instead of living in your mind and carrying it around all day long, it can live in your journal, whether that's an art journal, pen on ink. I had some great advice from, when I was very young. She was actually a woman who used to read tea leaves. And she was reading my tea leaves. This is in the 1980s. And she had suggested journaling because I had a lot of thoughts going through my head, and I was worrying about a lot of things. And she said, get 2 journals. One journal, write in the morning, your ideas, what you're excited about, the day's fresh, all of that. And then whenever it is, and you feel like turning your journal into the complaint space or the bitch journal, right? Where you bitch and moan. You bitch and moan to your journal about, a failure that you had, other people that pissed you off, things that aren't working out. Well, the energy is very different in the entries between a gratitude journal, for example, and a complaint journal. And her advice was to separate them so that heavy negative energy, which remains in the journal, everything has energy. This book feels different than when I pick up this book, right? I can practically just run my fingers along the spine of the book and tell you what's in it, what happened to me in it. So it carries energy. And she said at the end of the year, take that complaint, bitch journal, shit list journal, and burn it. And, look at it as lessons learned. So probably page through it, a little bit, and you'll see you didn't really need to worry about that. Everything turned out great. You had been over concerned about this particular thing. Maybe you stuck your nose in somebody's business that you shouldn't have, and that's the lesson that you learned. You don't need to default to fear and prepare for the worst when the best was already coming, right? So it was great advice. So I'm very careful about that, because the temptation when you journal at the end of the day is to review your day, and a lot of complaints come up in there. I noticed that was happening with me. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to journal at night, I have to have a separate journal. And then take the lessons and leave the rest. As my teacher, Sonia Choquette, used to say, take the lessons and leave the rest. So I have a whole ceremony that I do when I'm ready to, I burn journals when I'm done with them. We'll talk about that in a second. But I have a whole ceremony, I light a fire in my outdoor fireplace. I might even sit with a glass of wine. I'll start to page through them. I don't read the whole thing, but I just trust that Spirit's guiding me, to review what needs to be reviewed. And then that's it. I toss it into the flames. That energy is released. The lessons are free to land on someone else who needs them, because I don't need them anymore. And it's just a great practice. The other thing I want to say about journaling, this journal was very important to me. So I had written my name and my phone number, or my name, in case it got lost. This was a very big transition year for me. There's a lot of stuff about how I want to do my business, how I want to conduct my life. I was changing things up. It's primarily all about that. It could almost be somewhat of a business plan, but it's really an exploration of my ideas. But you want to be careful, because if you've got a lot of personal things in your journal, sometimes it's better to have nothing. So if this gets lost, nobody knows who this is. I was at a estate sale yesterday, and there was a pile of books there, and among the books were journals, handwritten journals from like the 1930s or 40s that were not identifiable. There was no name in them. And I remember one of them, the title of it was Confessions. And so you can do some confessions, but make sure that, it's not so identifiable, because they're personal, they're personal. And I think what I want to say about that is this: we have eroded the respect between the personal and the public. There's strangers, acquaintances, friends, lovers, family, and others. And with reality TV and on the internet and everything, people just sort of feel like they have a right to know what's going on in your personal life, and they don't. So keeping a personal line between, it's okay to be somewhat of an open book, if you like to be that way. But if you're that way, that's your choice. But you don't want to get in everybody else's, business too that way. And let me just give you an example. Everyone's kind of looking for dirt on everybody. So someone might pick up this journal and they would just read page after page after page. Now, I lived in Hawaii. I had a house in Hawaii for 20 years, and I had a bookshelf there, and I used to rent my house when I wasn't there to tourists, and people would come and they would leave a book. They would read a book and maybe leave a book. And one time someone left their journal, and she did have her name and her email address in the front cover. And when I knew it wasn't a regular book, and I thought it was my journal that I had left there. So I pulled the book out of the shelf, and I just cracked open the center, and I recognized it wasn't my writing. And I went like this. Right? Because I respect somebody's privacy. Other people, like my mother, for example, would have sat down and read the whole book, right? So she was a person who, used to try to read my journals, and I had stopped journaling when I was a young girl because of that. she had picked it up and would tease me about things that were, in there that were personal to me, but she thought were silly. So I stopped writing. And my father, I remember saying to me, don't write things down you really don't want anyone to read, Lisa, or at least don't make them unidentifiable. And then because of that, I didn't pick up journaling until I had my own life and my own house and all of that. So, there's people have their private thoughts there. So I remember I looked in the front page of that journal that I found. I saw a name and a number, and I wrote to her and I said, your journal is here at my home in Hawaii. I don't know when you were here, but I'd be happy to mail it to you. And she wrote back and she said, well, from reading the journal, you probably figured out that I was really going through this big change and I had this life-threatening, disease that was happening to me. And I wrote back to her, I said, no, I don't know any of that. I didn't read your journal. I said, I saw that wasn't my writing, and I closed the book and I looked in the front to see if there was a name and a number. I don't do that. That's not my thing. I don't find that, that's not entertainment for me. I don't use that as a form of entertainment, reading other people's stuff. If I stay at somebody's house, I don't open their drawers. I don't go looking in their medicine cabinet. I just, bed, bathroom, kitchen's all I need. I don't need to get into your stuff. So if that's an issue and you can't really trust that this can be private for you, you might want to find another way to do it. And that's why I brought up the art journaling. Because you know what this means. You would know. Just like an artist knows what was going on when they created a painting or a sculpture or that photograph. So this is a couple of ideas for you that I wanted to leave with you today about journaling and how wonderfully well it works to be able to clear your mind, have a place for things to go. You can go back and review later and see all the lessons that you learned. You can keep it if it's entertaining, like some of my travel journals, I keep those, but some of the other ones I don't keep, particularly if I'm talking about very specific people in there. Sometimes you can give them, you don't have to write their names, but you can use an initial or something like that to work things out. And then if there's anything in there that's really deep, dark, and ugly, you might want to consider burning it, and releasing that energy. I'm going to burn all my journals soon, all of them, even the ones that I love. I'm probably going to burn them all. And let that energy, go out and do some good, because I believe the energy dissipates and it's reused in another way. Okay, so if you have any questions for me, you can pop them in there. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you with that today.